I'm Steve, and I want to thank you so much for joining me in this conversation with Quynh. She's a great gal from Sarnia, and it is absolutely true what they say. Her mom makes the best spring rolls. And so, but Quynh is a great family friend. My wife and I tremendously respect her. Over the last several years of getting to know her, only grown in respect for her, seeing her willingness to challenge herself, but also learn from her mistakes. And so she's a great person, and I believe that she's going to add value to the conversation at large, and I believe that she'll add value to your life as well. So enjoy.
Boarding here. So, Quynh, I am very grateful that you're willing to have this conversation. We've known each other for about 10 years now, when you were just a wee little lass. And it's been awesome, not only like doing ministry with you, but watching you grow and learn, and also eating your mom's spring rolls, because your mom does make the best spring rolls. So, now, one of the reasons why we're having this conversation is because obviously all the tensions that are going on around us, all of those the conversations, the yelling, the screaming, they're not fun. They're not helpful. So what we want to do is we want to have a meaningful conversation with some real dialogue out of relationship. I know that you love Jesus passionately and you want to love him and serve him with all that you are. And so the context is we're brothers and sisters in Jesus. We have this common goal to love God, to love others as we love ourselves. And we do want to see lives change and transform for the glory of God. And so that all being said, we want to take that attitude of Christ, who considered himself not to be equal with God, and just became a servant, right? And so that's the goal today, is to do that. That being said, why don't you right now give us your story, tell us who you are, yeah, whatever you feel is relevant, and if I want to dig deeper because you missed something, I'll bring it up.
Okay. As you said, we've known each other for a while. I grew up in Sarnia, which is where you and I met. So I've lived here my whole life. I'm 23 years old, and I've lived with my parents, and I have two older brothers. I still live with one of them. The other one has moved out. He's married now. He has a baby on the way. Let's see, I'm a graduate of the business admin program from the college here in Sarnia. And I used to work well, I still do, but it's not open now. But I work at the movie theater. And so that's been fun. That's a little bit about, like, we're going to be talking about that today too, because there are some things there. And my family is Vietnamese. I've never been there myself, but like at home we speak Vietnamese. So I am very Vietnamese. But I'm also very Canadian because this is all I know.
Yeah. It's true. However, what's funny is when I would hear you and your brother talking to your parents on the phone, there was so much of a blend of English and Vietnamese that almost anyone listening in would at least have an idea of what was being talked about.
Yeah. Yes. And it's so frustrating at the same time trying to listen to Quynh and my mom. Quang's my brother. Quynh and my mom talk, because Quynh only understands like half of what she says. So he tries to fill in the other half with English. And then my mom only understands half of what he says too. So it's just frustrating watching this like spiral, and yeah. So,
but Quynh is also probably one of the best photographers I've ever seen in my entire life.
Sure.
Yeah, it's all sarcasm. Anyway, so that your family, they're all from Vietnam, and when did they come over?
They came over about 27 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
They've been here now.
And what was the reason for that?
So they basically came over. We call them boat people. So they were refugees. They came over here but the main reason is they wanted to have like a better life and a better future, because they weren't getting it living in Vietnam. So San was only about 7, I think, when he moved over here. And like we talk about this all the time. We just think it's funny that he came over and he was wearing like shorts and sandals, and they came over and it was February. So he was like, just right away, was like, yeah, we're definitely not in Vietnam anymore. Like, this is crazy. So
Yeah.
poor kid.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And let's talk about some of that cultural adjustment then.
Yeah.
Give me your thoughts on that.
Okay. So it's very funny to me because every single person in my family has a different way that they've kind of lived here. Like they have a different perspective of how we should be living in Canada. So like, for example, my dad, he's very American, even though he's not, he's Canadian, but he's like very American. He came over here and when we were growing up, he's like, okay, we're going to speak English at home because we're in Canada. But then my mom is, no, I don't want them to lose their heritage. So I want you to speak Vietnamese at home. You can speak English outside, but you have to speak Vietnamese at home. And Quynh is kind of like a mixture of my dad and like 10% of my mom. He's very like, I would say he's very white. He's very Canadian. He hates Asian food. He does not like he's nothing like me. Like me, I'm kind of like, I'm exactly 50% Canadian, 50% Vietnamese. And San, I didn't really pay attention when he was growing up. He's 10 years older than me, but he was like, all of his friends were white. And he basically like, I think he was pretty white when he was growing up, but now he's very like trying to hold on to his heritage at the same time.
Yeah. And it's just funny because I remember talking to San about when your family first moved over and how he had all of these friends. And I mean, obviously, again, they were all white and they all looked very different. Like he could see the differences. He saw that Johnny has red hair, Johnny has black hair, like whatever. And your mom, she couldn't. She couldn't. She thought that all the white people looked the same. Right. And it's funny because we have that exact same experience when we go over there and look at anything. Right. So, which I talked actually a little bit about that with Graham. And he said that even he at times has a hard time when he's in a room full of white people telling people apart.
Yeah. See, like, I have no idea how that even happens. Like, Quynh and I don't have that problem, but we're like, how is it that our mom can't, like, one friend has, like, literally, we have one friend who's a ginger, she has red hair, and then I have one friend who's 100% blonde, and she can't, like, she's just like, is it this girl that you're hanging out with? And I'm like, no, it's the other girl, like, it's, yeah. So it's, Quynh and I are just like, we're just so fascinated by that. Like, how is that even possible? They're so different. Like, one has freckles, one has blue eyes, and so I don't know.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I think it's great. So
I don't understand. I'm just kind of like, I'm trying to put myself in my mom's shoes and I'm trying to figure out how, but I just can't.
Honestly, in some ways, it kind of makes me think about the worship conversations that take place and how some people get really mad about how there's so much drums in North American worship, but then you go to Africa and all the old women over there are like, I wish we had the drums again because it's all synth, right? So it's just funny because we have these conversations and we think that this is going to be true to everywhere, but no, it's true to everywhere, but through our own lenses, right? And it's just fascinating to me how different people are. So that being said, is there anything else in that sphere that you think is relevant to quickly bring up or
Trying to look through my notes. Like, I kind of want to go back to where you said that how my mom can't like separate my brother's friends, kind of how you guys have some
absolutely
have that same issue too. I just want to kind of talk about how like sometimes we have like reactions to things that are different, and that's not wrong. Like, I don't think that's bad. It's just like, I just think it's just kind of gets to the racist wrong point is when you start like throwing hate on it or like making fun of it, using it as a joke kind of thing. But like, I just, like you said that, like other people may have the same reaction as us. It's kind of just, it's not your fault. It's just like in our brain, for some reason, like human nature is just like, when we see something different, it's just like, oh, or that's weird. Or sometimes our reaction could be like, ew. Like if the first time I saw sushi, I was like, ew, that's gross. But
Yeah.
And it's like we all have the same reaction. So I don't know, when you start like making jokes and saying that you hate this stuff, then it's like, then that's when it becomes a problem to me.
Okay. So
Yeah.
so then maybe let's just kind of begin there. What would you define truly as racism?
Um, anything that like you use something to take it down. So like, for example, last year there was this picture that was going around of these students that were taking like prom pictures, and one
Mhm.
of the girls had dressed in a Chinese traditional dress, like I think it's called a cheongdam or something.
Okay.
I'm totally pronouncing it wrong, but she's white, right? And
Yeah.
so I had no issue with her wearing that dress. I thought it was a beautiful dress, and I love that she wanted to like celebrate it. But it became a problem when she took that as an opportunity to pull her eyes back and use that to make fun of Asians. Yeah,
All right.
right. See, so like it
Okay. Yep.
was. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with her wearing that dress. I had no issue. It was beautiful. She wore it beautifully. But then when she took that as the opportunity to decide to show her true colors and be racist, then that's when it was like, okay, like this is an ugly picture now. Like this is no longer okay.
Hmm. No, and that I can get. That I understand.
Yeah.
Like that's weird.
Yeah. Yeah. I was just why did she not like think this through? Like she was a university grad, like she is now, but like
Yeah, she
as
should
even
have
as a high
like,
school student, you should know like that's definitely not okay.
and this is just last year, right? So it's
This is
kind of one
last
of those things
year.
where you're like, already
Yeah.
those things are very quickly frowned upon.
Yeah.
So,
So it's still going on too. Like this is not news or anything,
hmm
but
hmm so then, would you make a distinction between racism and prejudice?
um no, I think honestly prejudice and racism, I think they're in the same category.
Okay.
Like I was just having this conversation with my dad the other day.
Yeah.
We were talking about the George Floyd
Yeah.
news, and we started getting into like a heated argument, and he started talking about how like I don't want to bash on my dad. Like I love my dad, but like he just started
Yeah.
making points that were stereotypical points, right? And I said like stereotypes and prejudice, that is racism. Like you can't
So
make that assumption and make it like a blanket statement saying all of them are the same, all of them will do this, all of them are going to do that, and it's
yeah, because I think I can assume where your dad's coming from, but
yeah, yeah,
and your dad's not your dad's obviously not a bad guy. I know your dad. He's
yeah,
a very
yeah,
nice guy.
he is, yeah,
So oftentimes the sources that we utilize will inform our opinions, correct? So
yeah,
so
yeah.
maybe it'd be helpful for us just again, because I don't think this is slamming your dad, but what were some of the things that your dad was saying?
So he said like most crimes, like drugs, alcohol,
Hmm.
marijuana, murder, he said most crimes you can find Black people.
Hmm.
And I said, Dad, you can't make that statement, that is not a true statement at all. And because we were talking about the like Black Lives Matter movement, we were talking
Yeah.
about how all cops, not all cops, sorry, I shouldn't say that. We were talking about how some cops are bad cops and how they do things that they shouldn't be doing. They use excessive force. And
Hmm.
so we were talking about how, like George Floyd didn't deserve what happened to him. Of course not.
I
And
don't
my
think
dad,
anyone thinks he deserves
no,
what
nobody
happened.
thinks that.
Yeah.
And my dad doesn't either. But he just
Yeah.
said, like, but he's not, he said that George Floyd is not innocent either because he was watching some video of some vlogger ranting about it, who actually I've seen this vlogger. He's very racist. And he was
Okay.
talking about how, like people need to stop bashing on cops because they were just doing their job. And I didn't say that they weren't. If
Yeah.
George Floyd was doing whatever they assume he was doing, then he should have
The cops were probably there for a good
yeah,
reason. It was
exactly.
to the extent in which they did what they did. That was the problem.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. So, okay. Now, like, because when it comes to like your dad's stats and stuff like that, like
Mhm.
there are stats that verify that per
Yeah,
capita,
of
there's
course.
so much more crime
Yeah.
in the Black community,
Hmm.
and it is awkward to
It is.
acknowledge the facts of the statistics. Now, one of the things that I'm really beginning to kind of understand is that statistics, they can be true, and oftentimes, like when you see who the sources are, they're telling the truth, but it's a lens in which we're looking at something, right?
Yeah.
So the statistics, they're not there to be a gotcha, because you can skew statistics however you want to, because a stat is a number, right? It's just information, and people skew information to their advantage all the time.
Right.
So when we look at it, we're looking at these numbers through our lens, through our perspectives, and trying to make sense of what's going on. So like in so many ways your dad's right, but it's what lens is he looking through, and is he looking at the lens to understand, or is it as a lens to justify? And I think that when we fall into those categories, we need to figure out what we're doing there.
Exactly.
No, but I think that's helpful, right? To have those conversations and just be honest about it and get the awkward out there. Because again, once we expose the awkward, everyone can kind of be like, okay, that just happened. And then breathe.
Yeah.
Right? Instead of all this underlying awkwardness that just creates tension, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
So that being said, let's just jump into some of those questions that I have for you. So have you yourself experienced racism? Obviously, we did kind of talk about that, but let's go into it more.
I definitely have. They were never anything as extreme. Like I was never like violently attacked or anything, but there have been like people have made comments and they've said some stuff that kind of just left me like wondering like what the heck just happened. A lot of it happened at work at the movie theater. So one of the ones I can that definitely sticks out to me was I was taking out I was like tying up a garbage bag. I was throwing it in our like garbage caddy in this like back room. And one of our regular customers was walking by and he stopped and he was trying to talk to me, and I was just listening, just tying up the bags. And he was like, are you Chinese? And I'm like, nope, I'm not Chinese, sir. And I was like about to explain that I was Vietnamese. And then he just kept going. He's like, are you Japanese? Are you Korean? And I was like, no, I'm not. And I couldn't even answer him. And he had already made that decision. He was like, well, you must be like, you're definitely like Chinese. You're definitely Japanese. And I was like, no, I'm neither of those. And you're not even letting me answer. But he had already made up his mind, and he just like walked away and was like, yeah, she's definitely Japanese. And I just stood there and I was like, what? Like, I don't even know what happened. So I just like,
I'm just like a garbage bag.
Yeah. I'm just trying to throw the garbage out. And I was just like, and I called my friend and we were just laughing about it. And I thought it was funny, but then as I like kept thinking about it, it was just like, that was like pretty much really racist. Like he had just made in his mind a decision for me. He didn't even know who I was. I don't know this man. I don't talk to him. I don't even know his name. I just know he's a regular because I see him all the time. But like he didn't make the time to talk to me and have an actual conversation. And then like this was actually more recent. Another time was one of the last weeks before the building closed down because of the virus. I was working at the front desk and an older man came in and he was trying to buy a ticket and I was helping him. And we started talking about the virus. And he was like, so have you like heard about this coronavirus thing? And I was like, yeah, I did. I'm like, it's, all over the news and everything. And
I think I know where this is going.
Yeah. And he just like point blank goes, do you have the virus? And I was like, nope, no, sir, I don't have the virus. He's like, well, you must have the virus if you're Chinese. And I just stopped and I thought he was joking. So I started laughing because I was like, this cannot be for real. Like I'm not serious. And he wasn't laughing. So I was just like, sir, I'm not Chinese and I've never been to China. I don't have the coronavirus. And I just like handed him his ticket and he just walked away. But I was just
man.
I was frustrated when I got home and I was talking to my brother, but I went to visit him at his house and him and his friend were over and they were just like, why didn't you just like cough on his ticket and then hand it to him? And I was like, hey, like that would have added to the problem. Like I'm not trying to spiral the problem. I'm just sad that this is what people actually believe.
Yeah. See, and I think what you did was integrity, right? Because you just leave it.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, Jesus talks about the idea, right? If someone slaps you, just turn the other cheek, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's showing that grace. It's not responding with wrath, right? So I think if you took your brother's approach, although he was probably joking, that would, because again, I know San, so I don't think I know Sam. He might actually do it.
He
But,
would just to me, like if it was me, he would be like, "Here you go, Quynh."
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So if it was someone he knew, for sure.
yeah, yeah.
Um, but otherwise, I think he would just probably have like that, like what just happened?
He would just probably call them like an idiot, and then
Yeah, and walk away. So, but
yeah,
be confused. So
yeah,
anyway, I think it's that's crazy, and I'm sorry that you experienced that. Like that's so ridiculous.
yeah.
So would you say that in your experience at the movie theater, would most of your racist incidences be predominantly with old white guys?
Yeah, pretty much all of them. Yeah, yeah. There was like one time, actually, the first racist incident I ever like had was when I was in grade 3, and
Okay.
back then I was like, I didn't know that I was different. Like I didn't think of myself different than my friends because I grew up here. I'd never like I knew I was Asian, and at home like I ate rice and my friends ate like mashed potatoes, right? And but at school like I was not different. Me and my friends, we all played, we did the same things, whatever. But it was one day I brought a little Ziploc bag of like shrimp crackers, and those are an Asian snack, and
Mhm.
they just look like little crispy French fries. It's just like a chip, you just eat it.
Yeah.
And this girl in my class, she grabbed the bag and she like sniffed it and started yelling to the class like I was eating gross foods, and she threw it on the ground and literally stomped on. And yeah, right. And I was like, I was so sad because that was my snack, but also because like I couldn't believe that this was happening. Like this had never
Yeah.
happened to me before. And as like an 8-year-old, um, like I said, I never thought I was different. So after that time, I started kind of wanting to be more Canadian. Like I wanted to forget my heritage, which was really sad. It was like, and a lot of actually Asian American students, they have this same issue where as when they're younger is they're like embarrassed of their parents because of their friends, like the way their friends react. So
Yeah.
there was this one girl whose her dad was like a Chinese food delivery. He owned a restaurant, so he delivered Chinese food to their school, and her friends started making fun of her. So as she grew up, she kind of wanted to forget that she was Chinese, and it just like it's a pattern. And as you get older, you start to realize like there's nothing wrong with you. It's everyone else and how they react to you and how they see you. So as you get older, it's you trying to grasp onto that heritage that you tried to get rid of. And so that was like me when I was in grade 3. After that, I was like, okay, I don't want to be Vietnamese anymore. I just want to be white, like my friends. And now that I'm older and I feel like I have a responsibility to my parents and to my culture that I want to hang on to that. So it's just like really sad that that incident was like kind of what triggered everything after that.
No, and you've said this a few times, so I just want to clarify. When you say hang on to your culture, what do you mean by that?
Like I like just even the little things, just like the food wise, right? Like I stopped eating those shrimp crackers. I haven't had them since. Like I see them every time I'm in the store, and all it does is just like it's really sad. It just brings up that memory.
Mhm.
I stopped wanting to speak Vietnamese to my mom. I started trying to speak English, and um, even like talking about my future plans with my parents. Like I told them, I said like, oh, I want to marry a Canadian guy. I want to have a kid and I won't teach them Vietnamese, like stuff like that. But now that I'm older, it just like hanging on to that heritage is just like, the foods that we eat at home. Like I don't want to just continue to eat like mashed potatoes. Like I don't know why I keep thinking mashed potatoes is what Canadian people eat, but that's just like such a basic thing in my mind. It's like mashed potatoes, potatoes. But like hanging on to the heritage, I just feel like I will not listen to Vietnamese music. That's the last thing I'd do. But having that connection with my parents, it's
Mhm.
something that I don't really want to lose.
Mhm.
I don't know if that answers your question, but
I think it does. I think in general
okay.
it does. Yeah. Because
Yeah,
it's just trying to understand, right? Because when people say hang on to my culture, right? When you hear
yeah.
about people wanting to like maintain Black culture, like
Hmm.
what does that mean? Right? Like because oftentimes when we think Black culture, it's so vague,
Yeah.
right? And so when you think Asian culture, right?
Hmm.
Vietnamese culture is specific,
Yeah.
people are going to start thinking like Vietnamese culture is Chinese, Japanese, right? Like, what do you
Yeah.
mean you don't eat Chinese food, right? Like,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
um, and so like you're not eating Thai food,
No. I mean, I will, but that's not what I'm,
right? But
yeah.
that's not it, right? So
Right.
it's just
Right.
like you try to, because when you say black culture, it's the same thing, right? Like what
Mhm.
you're talking about Jamaica, you're talking about like what are we defining here, right?
Right.
Like are we talking about Canadian or American black culture
Hmm.
that you kind of assimilate to,
Yeah.
right? It's that question, right? So,
Yeah.
um, so again, you're one of those the funny moments. I think it's funny, even though it's
Oh, I
terrible.
do. Yeah.
Is when you're working at the movie theater and someone thinks that you're that girl from the
Oh my
Cineplex
gosh. Yes.
video.
Yes.
Um, so tell us about that moment.
Okay, so it actually is funny because like one of my best friends and her boyfriend, they say that every time when they go to a movie and they see that as like the
It's
preview,
Quynh.
they're like, it's Quinn. And I'm just like, I honestly, you guys are the worst. Um,
Can I be completely honest with you?
yeah.
Mary and I do it too.
Yeah, I know you guys told me this before. You guys are so mean.
It's only because we told us a story. Anyway, keep going. Keep going.
Yeah, okay, so I was like leaving work one night and I had to stop to get gas. So I pulled into this gas station and one of the workers there, I was still wearing my uniform. So the worker just looks at me and he's like, oh my gosh, he's like, you're that girl from the movies. And I thought he was like talking about like the girl from the movie theater because I literally like felt like I lived there at that time. And he's like, you're the girl that like gives away free movies. I was like, no, I'm like, I've never given away a free movie before in my life. And then it hit me that he was talking about the girl. And I was like, no, I'm like, that's not me. And he kept like thinking that I was trying to be modest. So he's like, no, it's okay. He's like, I won't tell anyone you're here. And I'm like, first of all, like, she's not even like famous. She's not like Brad Pitt or something, right? And he just kept pushing that I was that girl. And I just thought it was like so awkward. It was so awkward.
So, in those moments, would you say that it's fair to assume that it's like when you walk up to somebody and say, congratulations? You go up to a
Yeah.
woman and say, congratulations. Would
Yeah.
you say it's that same kind of feeling?
I think it's like a similar feeling. I wouldn't say it's like the exact same thing,
Mhm.
because like you're kind of pointing out her figure, which definitely
Oh,
not something you should do. Um, but it's similar because it's like the same awkward feeling you would get. Like it's awkward on both ends. Like the person who made the mistake and the person that you're directing it towards are both gonna feel like I'm just gonna leave now. Like I don't want any part of this. I'm out of here. Um, but it was so awkward because like I knew this girl, like obviously she was Asian, like I knew she was Asian and she worked at Cineplex and it was just like, okay, yeah, like those are the only two common things about me and her is that are just that. But like
yeah.
it was so awkward and I honestly felt bad for the guy after, but I was also like so embarrassed and I was like, I just let me pay for my gas and I want to go home. Like it's been a long day already. Like
Yeah.
yeah. But yes, I feel like it's a similar feeling. Like you both just want to kind of like disappear. You don't want to be there anymore.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, and that's fair. And I'm again, it's terrible that those kinds of things do happen.
Yeah.
But I mean, like again, I really appreciate your humility in all of this, Quynh, because even though sometimes it can be super offensive and super brutal, one of the things that I've noticed is your resolve to just try to say whatever. Um, and I know in our culture, what's shifting greatly is people having that attitude at first
Mhm.
to being where now, if you have that attitude, it's almost being considered to be a bad thing, right? To have that whatever
Mhm.
attitude. So how would you suggest when we go into those moments and say there's something that's a mistake that's done, or say you observe the mistake? How do we lovingly, in your mind, because again, the scripture says, speak the truth in love. How do we lovingly address that?
Um, so if you're the person making the mistake and you know it's a mistake, just say sorry. Like, say, I'm so sorry. Like, I obviously, it wasn't my intention, right? Like, I was having this conversation with Quynh. I'm like, if somebody came up to me and said, like, talking about the guy that thought I was Japanese, if he had made a mistake and he'd let me explain that I'm Vietnamese, I would have been like, that's okay. Like, that's a totally normal mistake to make. And if you're genuinely like sorry and you just apologize, like, I have no bad, like, hard feelings against you. Sorry, something just moved. But if you know you're making a mistake, but you still continue and to flaunt that and kind of act like you're right and that you didn't make a mistake, then that's when it's like, okay, it's kind of difficult for us to be loving towards you, because we just say like, okay, I'm sorry, you're wrong. That's not right. Like, we love you, but it just feels like you're being very disrespectful towards us. So if it was like a hate crime, like if it was a violent attack, then I would.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, then I would
get
say,
in there.
okay,
Stop
yeah,
it. Yeah.
right. I would step in and say that's not right. You have to call the cops or something. But if it's just like a simple mistake, like you look at sushi and you say, "Ew, that's disgusting," and it's like, "Oh no, it's actually not. It's quite delicious." But that's okay. You can have your opinions too.
The problem
right?
isn't with the sushi. The problem's with you.
Exactly.
Yes.
Your opinions are wrong. You can have your wrong opinions, but like, I always say this to my friends, like, I don't have any hate towards people that make mistakes like that. If they're like, if I didn't intend to make that mistake, like, we know that you're not being intentional, so then we just educate you. We just say we love you, and like, here's like what you need to know.
Mm-hmm.
Like that girl with the picture, if she didn't pull her eyes back, then I would just be like, that's a beautiful dress. Like, thank you so much for celebrating that. Like, that's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that she chose that action was kind of like, yeah, that's
sketchy. Yeah.
Yeah.
At the very least. So,
Yeah.
So then, that being said, how do we celebrate our differences?
Oh, I love that. So I think the easiest way to do it is just ask questions, whatever you're curious about. Like, for example, like Black culture, if you say like, hey, like, that's like, I love the way you do your hair. How do you do that? Like that stuff like that. If you see something that you're curious about, just ask us. Like, we won't be offended that you're asking, because we are different. And that's how we celebrate our differences. Which, when you see something different, ask about it, learn about it, or like, try our food. It's delicious, right? Like, try different food. It is delicious, right? Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
And your mom's spring rolls are actually the best spring rolls that
They're
we've
really
ever had.
good.
We love your mom's spring rolls.
I love my mom's spring rolls too. But yeah, so if you see, like, to celebrate your differences is just ask and celebrate with us. So for like Chinese New Year, Vietnamese New Year, celebrate with us. Come out and join the parades, come watch the stuff, just be part of it. We won't be offended that you're participating in something with us. Like, the more the merrier.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the wrong way to celebrate is, for example, like shows like Family Guy, where they take like Asian stereotypes and they kind of take it to the extreme. Mm-hmm. I hate that stuff. Like, that's not celebrating it. Shows that are like Kim's Convenience. It's a lot of stereotypical Asian qualities in there, but you're still celebrating the Asian culture, because they're not using it to make fun of Asians, right? They're using it to educate people on, like,
it's a vehicle.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, that's okay. No, and that makes sense. So then, what's crossing the line then, right? So again, we kind of talked a little bit about this, but maybe there's some more specifics we can go through. What would be crossing the line? So when we're thinking of making jokes, right? What are your thoughts on that?
See, that's hard for me because, like, like, I grew up kind of making jokes at myself, and I sometimes still do too, right? Mm-hmm. But I think crossing the line is kind of like the intention behind it, mm-hmm. right? Like, are you intending to hurt us? Are you intending to put us down? Like, going back to stereotypes, like, there's a stereotype that, like, all Asians are good at math. I can personally vouch that that is not true, because I'm not good at math. But it's just like, if you ask us about why do all Asians study, we can tell you that there's actually like a very beautiful reason why we study so hard. It's because a lot of us Asian kids, this is how we thank our parents, right?
Mm.
So I think with stereotypes, a lot of the stereotypes have like a beautiful reason behind them. But then there's also like stereotypes that people, like maybe one person did it who was Asian, like for example, the bad drivers. That's not true. Okay, like that's just not a true stereotype. Everyone is a bad driver. Okay, living in Sarnia, have you seen the bad drivers? And
Oh,
I got
I've
cut off so many times the other day, and I was just, Jesus, extra grace required for these people.
Sarnia is a special place.
Yeah, very
So,
special.
so that all being said, then too, just thinking of even church experiences, right? So again, like, I mean, we won't say which church you
Yeah,
are part of.
sure.
Even though we know that your church is amazing
Mm-hmm.
and it's full of leaders that 100% support you and are behind you,
Yes.
have you experienced any negative moments in the church, like racist moments in the church?
I
And
personally
maybe not at your church, but at
not ever
church
know.
events.
Right.
So
Right. I've heard stories of like my friends or my cousins at churches where they did experience some racism, for especially now during the time of this pandemic. There
Okay.
was a pastor that decided that it would be a good idea to kind of blame the Chinese community for the virus, and that's just unnecessary. Like that's not needed, right? It's not
Or true.
or true, exactly. But that's not what we need right now, right? And
Yeah.
in the church, in the Bible, God says we need to love everyone. And
Yeah.
that includes maybe people you don't agree with, people you don't like, people you might blame for a virus that wasn't actually their fault. And so it's
Because
just,
even if we want to look at the virus, right?
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
whose fault really was it? I mean, was it the innocent people
Mm-hmm.
that are like the
Exactly.
billion people that are there, or is it potentially another system that's a little bit corrupt,
Right.
and they're actually the problem,
Yeah.
not the people, right?
Yeah. 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 So like in the church, it's just disappointing and it's disheartening to hear things like that, because a church is supposed to be the one place where you know that no matter who you are, no matter what you've done, like this is the one place where you will feel God's love. And just hearing stories like that is just you're just okay, like you're exhausted, you're like, okay, that's it, like that's, yeah.
Yeah. Can you talk about something that you think your church does well in celebrating the differences?
Yeah. So our church we always have like I forget what they call it, but they do like a different nations. Our church, we have like the different nations, they come and they bring like food. We do like a potluck, and it's amazing to see all the different cultures that we have in our church, because the church will actually reach out to the people that are from those different cultures. Like my mom gets a phone call every year. Can you make some food for us from Vietnam? And she's always excited to get that call. And our church celebrates like our different missionaries, and I think that's also important as well, to know that we have people from our church in different countries preaching the same love that we preach here.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think that's our church does that really well. Yeah,
that's good.
mm-hmm.
That's good. I'm so glad to hear that. So Quynh, I'm very grateful that you did take the time to have this conversation. Are there any other things that kind of go through your mind that we've kind of brought up that you want to kind of touch base on, or?
No, I think I'm good. I can't really think of anything right now.
All right. No, that's fair.
Oh wait, actually, yeah, I did. Yeah.
Okay, go.
I was actually thinking about this last night, and going back to kind of maybe how we both have like the same reactions to things that are different. I just saw this, well, I didn't just see it, but I've been seeing this quote a lot on like Instagram and Facebook, that we're not born to be racist or to hate. It's something that we're taught.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's very important, as like you're a parent yourself. I think it's important to teach the future generations that diversity is actually beautiful, and that we need to be accepting. And especially in the church, we need to love everyone, no matter who you are, no matter what color your skin is. So like speaking of my own personal experience, it's kind of hard sometimes living in my house because my parents are a different generation and they're a different culture. So they were taught one thing while I was taught something else. And so I think that it's fascinating to me that such polar opposite views are under one, like the same roof, and we have the same DNA. But I'm grateful that I didn't get the same message that my parents did, because I think that it helps me for sure to teach the next generation as well that, you know, we can love everyone, and it's okay to be different. Like it's okay to be a different skin color, different culture. But yeah, I just think that that's really important to remember.
It's a great thought.
Yeah.
No, because God makes no distinctions, right?
That's
There's
right.
only, I was listening to a message and the guy was saying that there's only one racial distinction that God makes, and that's between Jews and Gentiles. And even that Jesus conquered, right?
Yeah.
So he's like, and we got one fold now, right? So it's amazing and it's good. I mean, I appreciate working with you and doing stuff with you and hanging out and
Yeah.
stuff. You're a good kid. And I mean, I just really value you and your heart because you're very sensitive to the spirit, but also just sensitive towards others and their needs. So, Quynh, I want to pray for you, and then yeah, we can wrap up. So, Jesus, I thank you for Quynh. I thank you for her heart. I thank you for the ways that you've used her, helping out with junior highs and high school students. And even when she was those ages, she was loving those people and trying to tell people about you. Even when she was afraid, she was still trying to tell people about you. And that's remarkable. So God, I pray that you would bless her. I pray you would bless her in her current schooling and trying to grow and learn. And that God, you would give her exponential favor in the job market when she puts her resume back out there. And that, Lord, she would just really see you at work. And that, God, you would make her foundational and critical and extremely useful to wherever she lands. So pray she would continue to add value wherever she is, and that, God, you would do amazing things. In your name, amen.
Amen.
Awesome. Thanks, Quynh, so much for your time.
Thanks, Steve.